Most of you will know me. I'm Leanne Powell. I'm Membership and Groups Manager, and I've been working for Woodcraft Folk now for about 13 years. And my role is to support the volunteers with membership and DBS, as well as doing a little bit around safeguarding and also supporting groups in starting up, and obviously supporting them whilst they're running as well. So we'll get started. Okay, so what we'll cover today is who needs a DBS, the online DBS process, the update service, suitability references, a little section on safeguarding and raising concerns, and then further information and support. Okay, so who needs a DBS? So every group night activity should have a minimum of 2 leaders with a DBS. So that's kind of the standard. Obviously, you might have helpers who help out ad hoc as well. But there needs to be a minimum of 2 leaders with a DBS at any group night or activity. Okay, so volunteers who regularly help out in a group or attend an overnight stay require a DBS as well. That is a standard. If regularly, I should say that when we say regularly, I'm struggling with that word, I don't know why. That means more than once a month. So any volunteer that helps more than once a month is required to have a DBS. And if you're planning to attend an overnight stay, that is mandatory. Group and district office holders are required to have DBS because they have a role and responsibility. So that can be a group leader, that can be the local safeguarding officer, that can be your health and safety person, that could be your district coordinator. So all those roles, because of the kind of level of activity that you'll have within the district or group, you're required to have a DBS. And then finally, there are DFs who are taking a role of responsibility at a group night or camp. So anyone 16 plus who's going to be taking on a role of responsibility will be required to have a DBS. That can be someone doing clan duty, that could be someone helping out on a camp, that can be, obviously with the DFs, they also have their own activities. Obviously, they would need to have a DBS if they weren't going to be a participant, but they were going to be helping to run a session or an activity on the camp. So those are the roles that require a DBS. Okay, so the online DBS process, as most of you will know, we do all our DBS applications on our platform called First Advantage. It's a really easy system to use. Obviously, the applicant can apply for their DBS online. And then the membership secretary's role is then to witness the ID and also to kind of submit the application off to the disclosure and barring service for processing. So new and existing members are signposted to this link here, and they'll get that link via their membership application when they make it. As a new member, or existing members will be signposted to that link when they are due for renewal. So to create an online application, an applicant needs the organisation PIN, and every district has its organisational PIN. And there's a list of all those PINs on our website when the person's making their application to apply for a DBS. And they also need the secret word, which is ICAMP. So we provide the secret word when they're either doing a renewal or they're going to be a new member via their application. But if anyone comes and asks you directly, then it's ICAMP, but we don't have the password on our website or anything like that, the secret word. Once the applicant has completed and submitted their application, then as a membership secretary, you will be notified that the person has applied, and that you then need to go and witness their ID and then submit the application off to the DBS. So the system is really, really intuitive. So it will tell you what ID the person has selected in order to show you, so that obviously you can be prepared to witness a passport, a driving license, a bank letter. There is guidance about what ID can be used, but the system is really intuitive that it will take you through those steps. And if a person doesn't provide the ID that they specified in their application, then you can easily go into the system and tell it that the person hasn't given you what you expected, and then it will allow you to select the new ID that they've given you instead. So the system is really, really easy to use. And there is guidance for membership secretaries and applicants on how to use First Advantage on our website. But obviously, you can always come to me or the membership assistant if you need any support with the system. So when you're witnessing ID, we recommend arranging a time to meet up with a volunteer. This can either be face-to-face, and since the pandemic, you can now do it by video call. The DBS do specify that you shouldn't accept photocopies of ID. If you do a video call and witness the person's ID, then they recommend as good practice that you then see the ID in person when it's a more convenient time, so that you can verify that it wasn't kind of a fake or something that was doctored online or anything like that. So that's what they specify. So then you verify the application online, which is really easy to do. It's a step-by-step process on the First Advantage platform. And once the application has been submitted, it usually takes around 4 weeks to process. Sometimes we get them back even sooner. But once they are processed, we will receive the outcomes via the First Advantage platform at head office. So we will find out whether the DBS is okay or not okay. And the volunteer will receive a paper copy of their certificate. So yeah, that's how that works. And then I just want to point out a few DBS FAQs. So if you have any transgender volunteers that would like to do their DBS under their new gender, then there is a sensitive DBS application process for that, and there is guidance available for you on our website that you can use. So that is there if anyone does ask. It's a question that's come up just a few times, but it's worth noting that. All DBS applications for working with children are enhanced. We don't accept basic police checks, and we don't accept any that are just not checked against the child workforce. The ones that are checked against the child workforce also look at any kind of registers, as well as obviously any criminal activity. And then I should explain the lead times. We always suggest that it takes about 4 weeks for a DBS to be processed, but sometimes it can be longer depending on whether the applicant has moved quite a few times in the last 5 years. So obviously they have to check each kind of police borough. If there are any kind of criminal convictions that are noted on there, that sometimes it might take that a little bit longer. And sometimes there can just be delays. But what we can't do is we can't fast track any DBS applications. So that's a question that gets asked a lot. The lead times are what they are. And you can check out the status of a DBS application on First Advantage. If you've got someone's DBS that is in processing, you can just hover over their name with the mouse, and you should get an explanation of where the status of the DBS and where it is in the stage. I think it's a 4-stage process. If there is a criminal conviction listed on someone's certificate, then what will happen is that we will be told the outcomes at head office, whether it's okay or not okay. If it's not okay, we will then contact the applicant and let the membership secretary know as well that we've made that contact, that we need the DBS certificate to be witnessed. Once we've seen the DBS certificate, we can then do a risk assessment based on what's listed on their DBS certificate. Usually it's quite a really seamless process. If it's, you know, just a kind of misdemeanor, it's kind of just a quick note of what's happened, and then, you know, they're okay to work with Woodquar folk. But if there is something that we need to look into further, we might need to get explanation of what's happened with the in the offence, and we might just have to do a little bit more work around whether they can, for instance, you know, if they have a recent drinking and driving conviction, then we would ask them not to drive any cars for Woodquar folk. But obviously if it was a spent conviction, as in that it's not considered deemed to be active anymore, then we wouldn't take that course. So there is a procedure document that is available on our website which explains when we do a risk assessment and when we don't. And obviously when we contact the applicant, we always show them that policy as well. And then I should say DBS renewals are every 3 years. If you're part of the update service, I'll explain a bit more about the update service in a minute. If you're part of the update service, then it's still 3 years, but it's a slightly different check that we would do. That's the DBS online process and FAQs. Okay, the DBS update service. So the DBS update service has been going on for since 2013, I believe it started. And so basically what it is, it's a subscription scheme that they started up. So basically what happens is a DBS is subscribed to the update service, and then it's kept up to date by the Disclosure and Barring Service, so that the person can use that certificate with different organisations rather than having to apply for a new DBS every time. What can happen is that an organisation can run a check on someone's DBS certificate using their certificate number, and it will let them know if there's been a change in that person's criminal record since the issue of that DBS certificate. We still need to witness the original certificate because the update service check won't tell us any historical, won't tell us about any historical convictions. It will only tell us if there's been a change since that certificate was issued. And I'll explain a bit more on the next slide about that. So Woodcraft Folk, so kind of the update service is obviously a really easier way of doing renewals for volunteers. So we have an opt-in scheme for our volunteers. So new members and existing members, when they're applying for a DBS with us, we will say, would you like us to opt you into the update service scheme? It's free of charge for volunteers to join the update service, and we will do that process for you. I mean, applicants can do it themselves if they want to, but we tend to find that sometimes they don't necessarily know when to subscribe and so forth, and so it's easier if we do it. And I think I'd say about 70% of our volunteers now are on the update service, which is amazing. So as I was explaining before, when a DBS is due for renewal, at head office, what we'll do, if we have your permission to run an automatic check, then we will just do that check automatically. If there are no outcomes, then we'll just renew your DBS certificate for 3 years. If there is a change in your, if there is a change to your criminal record since the issue of your DBS certificate, we would do the risk assessment process like we do with a new application. So that's how it works at head office. I should say that to subscribe to the DBS, you can either subscribe to the update service, whilst your application is in processing. And then I think you have 19 days after the issue of the certificate to subscribe to the update service. So if you don't tell us within that kind of period of time, if you want to subscribe to the update service, then obviously you've missed the boat, and then you'll have to wait in 3 years' time when you apply again. And that sometimes does happen. We always try to prompt new members by email about the update service so that we can try and make sure that we can subscribe them. And it's always really good to have a chat with your new volunteers about that as well, so that we can make sure that that's happening. So I should say on the membership application form for new members, there is a tick box for that option, so that we can collect information at that point, or you can drop us an email to let us know, especially with the renewals as well. That's the best time to drop us an email when your application is in processing. But there is information about that on the website. So if someone is part of the update service and they're using a DBS certificate from another organisation, we do accept that it has to be subscribed to the update service. So we don't do kind of basic portability where we can just look at someone's DBS certificate and say, yes, that's fine, there's nothing on there. It has to be part of the update service because we have to get that up-to-date information. Obviously a DBS certificate is almost kind of like out of date the day that you receive it, because obviously you can receive your certificate today and commit a crime tomorrow, and then obviously that is not picked up. So that's why we have to accept DBS certificates using the update service. The DBS certificate has to be an enhanced certificate working with children, like I explained before. And also the original DBS certificate needs to be witnessed, because obviously the online check doesn't tell us about any historical things that may be on your certificate, only if there's been a change in circumstances since the DBS certificate was issued. And then what needs to happen is the details of the DBS certificate need to be given to the head office for the online check to be processed. So that can be that the membership secretary can either fill in one of our online forms that we've got now and submit that information to us via the online form. We'll then use that information to run the check and update our update group with that information. Or it can be that the individual sends us a scanned copy of their DBS certificate. and we can use that to run the check, or they can, yeah, those are the two ways actually. Or you can do it by video call. So, I mean, there's a number of ways that you can get that information to us, and we can also contact the individual and request that information as well. So that's how the DBS update service works for us. If someone is using their certificate from another organisation, we do also ask them the question on the online form, whether they want to give us permission to run that check every 3 years using this certificate information as well. So that way we're still running that kind of online check process rather than getting people to apply for a new DBS. So that's how the DBS update service works for us. If there are any questions about it, we'll do that at the end of the session. So the next slide is about suitability references. So as part of the new member volunteer application, we also require references, 2 references to be sought for the volunteer. Obviously, the DBS covers any kind of criminal convictions, but also obviously we need to also just kind of check the person's suitability to work with children, and that can be obviously a confidential reference is sought to just to do a double check on that person. And so we ask all of our volunteers for 2 references, and now we have an online form which is readily used by everyone, which is really, really good. It's really reduced the kind of admin for membership secretaries, because in the past it was all done by paper or by email, and the responsibility of making that request was on membership secretaries, whereas now using the online form, it really, really has reduced that level of work, and it also means that we're actually getting a really good response rate on our references. So what we have is a link that we provide in the membership application, and we send that to the new member and say, can you forward this link onto 2 referees, please? And that information comes directly to us. It includes the contact details for the referee, so obviously that we can check anything that we have any questions about. So it's a really good way of collecting that information. The references sought can be from a doctor, a teacher, colleague, friend, or previous volunteers placement. And we request that at least one of the references are external, so a non-Woodcraft person, so that we can just have, obviously you can have a relationship with someone in Woodcraft, it can be quite a different relationship that you have with someone outside of the movement. So it's really good to have an external person. And then obviously your help in chasing up references is really helpful, and obviously it speeds things up. So it's always great if you can remind your new volunteers about the 3 kind of aspects of their membership application, which is obviously applying, obviously DBS and references, and all of those things we are continually chasing now. Obviously new membership applications are made through group, which can obviously, you know, you apply and then you expect the next step to be the DBS, but obviously they get an email with a lot of information explaining stuff to them, which we're hoping to change very soon and make it a bit more of a seamless process. But obviously things can go missing sometimes, and so your help in kind of chasing those things up is really helpful. Obviously all membership secretaries have access to group now and the membership information for all of their volunteers. So anything that looks, if there are any gaps, anyone who's lapsed, anyone who doesn't have a DBS who should do, or anyone who doesn't have references, then kind of chasing those people up is really, really helpful if they are required to have it for their role in your group or district. So that's suitability references. And then safeguarding, just wanted to quickly cover it. Obviously DBS and vetting is part of us ensuring that we're safeguarding the children and people in our movement. But obviously safeguarding is protecting children from maltreatment, preventing impairment of children's health or development, ensuring that children are growing up in the circumstances consistent with the provision of safe and effective care, taking action to enable all children to have the best outcomes, everything we do to keep children physically and emotionally safe. And as I said, see, screening is a part of that, but it's also, you know, really good to kind of have an all-round picture of safeguarding. Raising concerns, we all have a responsibility to raise concerns if there is something that we have witnessed or have heard or feel uncomfortable about. We always say, just make sure that you share that information with your safeguarding lead, or if a child is in immediate danger, contact the police, or you can come direct to the safeguarding team at Woodcraft, which you can contact us on. I'm one of them, safeguarding@woodcraft.org.uk. If you have any worries about an individual child or possible abuse within their home, if you witness inappropriate behaviour of an adult, volunteer, or a child, volunteers not abiding by Woodcraft policies and procedures, please do let us know, and we will take the necessary steps to ensure the safeguarding of that child, young person, etc. So I just wanted to quickly share that with you as well. And further support. So on our website, obviously we've got this new fancy website now. We have membership FAQs. It's a really good place to go to if you have any questions about the membership process, about DBSs, about renewals, online payments, etc. It's a really good place to go to first, but obviously feel free to email me or the membership@woodcraft.org.uk email, which is managed by myself and my new membership assistant, Rosie. And then volunteer screening is another link that's really, really good to go to. And that has the link to the online references section, and also a bit more information about DBS, ID checking, for instance, and links to where you can apply, i.e. First Advantage. So that's the end of my session. That was really quick. I hope that was informative. I'm going to check the chat and see if there are any questions there. No questions there. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Yes, I do. Rosalind, hi, Leanne.
Hi.
We have a Ukrainian child at Woodcraft. If her mother wanted to overnight at a camp and apply for DBS, have you got any experience of how that works and whether they can get one, given that they haven't got a past history here?
Well, yeah, the DBS will only kind of cover the period that they were in the UK. In some instances, I know they can check some international lists and Interpol lists, but it will be mainly focused on their period, their time here. If they are able to get police checked in the country that they originated from, that's fantastic. We'll have a look at that, as well as doing a DBS as well. But if they've been in this country for quite a few years, then obviously the DBS cover them for the period of time that they're here, and obviously if they've committed a crime in this country. I think if it's a serious crime, then I think that would flag up on some police lists. Obviously misdemeanors might be missed, but the DBS would cover them whilst they were here.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm not worried about the person at all themselves, yeah. But it's just, you know, how easy it is to sort of try and put it through. But it's worth trying to.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and in the 5-year address history, obviously if they have only been here for 2 years, for instance, then still put the addresses where they were living when they were based in, I think you said Lithuania.
Ukraine.
Apologies. Yes. So if you put those addresses, give a full 5-year address history, and they can see when the person was in the country and not in the country.
Okay. Yeah. Right. Okay. Lovely. Thank you then.
All right.
Leanne, I had a question as well.
Yeah.
We've got a small Chinese community, and they quite often have the same first name twice.
Okay.
And we've got a member at the moment, and the system won't accept it because it's a duplication of the same name.
Okay.
But it is actually their name.
Yeah.
We have actually written to the service to ask them if they can offer us a bit of advice. I just wondered if you had got a.
I haven't come across that before. I'm just thinking maybe in other names, maybe that might work if you put the same name again. If you just do the single name in first name and last name, and then in other names, perhaps put them both, the two names together in there, and then put the date period as from birth till now, and see if it will accept it that way instead.
Okay, no, that's a
Worth
good.
a try. It's worth a try
Yeah,
to see if that will work.
I'll give that a go.
Yeah, amazing.
That's helpful. With
That's
the suitability references,
yeah.
are we able to see on the spreadsheet if you've received people's suitability references?
Yes. So if you access group, you can click on anyone's record and then view the membership information that we have for them, and you will see the dates received for the references.
Yeah.
If you're pulling off a spreadsheet, then you can add that column to your sheet, to your kind of people section on group, and then it will export it that way. And if you're getting a list from us, then if you're requesting a list directly from us, then if you make a note in the email that you'd like that to be included, then we can definitely make sure that's added for you.
Okay, no, that would be helpful, because I think sometimes when people are doing their membership via Central, which is brilliant, by the way, it saves such a lot of work. It was an absolute pain in the neck chasing people's references.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I'm not always 100% confident that they've done that extra step.
Yeah.
And we've got district camp in May, so it's just one of the things that I really want to make sure is done for the people who are coming.
Yeah, I mean, I've got our assistant, she is really on it in terms of chasing. So if a new member applies, then they're gonna get a lot of emails until they provide the information.
Excellent. That is good to know.
It's happening.
That's good to know. And sorry, just one more question. I'm off the train, so I can ask a question now. With DS, I think you said if they were coming on camp, but they were just coming as a young person, not actually kind of taking a role. Was I right in hearing that they didn't necessarily need a DBS then, only if they were kind of taking a role of like leading activities?
Yeah, if they are just coming along as a participant to the camp, then they're not required to have a DBS, no. And if they'd have any kind of role at a group night or on a camp, then they're required to have one with us. Yeah.
Perfect. No, that's brilliant. That's really helpful.
Amazing. Glad I could help.
Thank you.
That's all right. I can see there's a question in the chat. Let's have a look. Which roles have access to information on group? So the roles I believe that have access to that information on group is the membership secretary, and the district contact, the safeguarding person, and then group leaders, and then obviously that the group admin will have access to the membership information on those records. So currently what we've done is that from our membership database, we're copying people into their district group. It's really annoying that it's called group. We're copying people from our membership database into the district's group people section, and that's where you can access information. If someone then needs to be into one of their groups because that's where they're doing their volunteering, then the membership secretary can copy that person from the district people section into the groups people section, and so they can have access to that information. They're their group coordinator, and any of the group leaders can have access to that information. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question. If you do,
it does, and it doesn't, because it's given me another question.
Okay,
so
go for it.
The issue we've got in part is that as part of moving the membership database over, we've now got all our historic members in the district.
Okay.
And in order for us to be able to use group to send out emails or anything, we want to archive the people who are no longer active.
Yeah.
Which is partly why I was checking roles, because I think I'm down as safeguarding and I don't think I could quite see all the information, but I might just be looking in the wrong place.
I'll check that again. I said I'm coming back. I wasn't part of that kind of piece of work, but I can double check and make sure that that role has access to membership information, because it should do. And
I'll go looking again, because it didn't make sense to me that I couldn't see some of the bits that I was expecting to see.
Yeah. So if you send me a list, Jenny, of all those people that should be archived, so I can change, change their membership status as well. So friends of the folk, if they're not necessarily active anymore, but they are still making a donation, I can change their status, and then you can go ahead and archive them from your district, and they can still be active in the database. That's fine.
That would be good, because
Amazing.
It just gets a bit cluttered in there when there are people we know we haven't seen for 10 years.
Exactly.
But
And
you say it's helpful to move those who are active in groups into their group.
Yeah.
Is it okay to do that if they've already got a record?
Okay.
So we've got a lot of parents who've signed up to come to camp. I tend, because at the beginning of group we were asked to set up one parent while we were working out the system. In a lot of cases I've still only got one parent set up. If I take from the district, if I copy all those people into my Elfin group, will I duplicate the parents that I've already got?
Okay. So
if they're updating contact details, will it update in all the places?
Okay. So if a person has a number of records on the platform in different groups in the district, in the database, if they're all using the same email address, they should be naturally syncing together. Okay. And the one that has, I think the membership database record is obviously the kind of top of the hierarchy tree, and all that information at the top should be filtered down below. However, if someone changes information in a record that stays sitting in the district people section, it should sync with all the other ones as well. This is what group have said, and so far I haven't seen that. It hasn't been working. So they all should be syncing together. So obviously the membership information can only be amended by us, and that definitely filters down to everybody. But if you change an individual's contact telephone number, that should sync across all the records, as long as they're all using the same email address. Brilliant. That's the identifier. So you wouldn't have to copy them across if they already exist in the group, in the group people section. That
makes sense. It just doesn't seem to quite do what I'm thinking then.
Okay, if there are any kind of weird anomalies, let me know, because obviously then we can report that back to group.
I've got one parent at the moment that I've been emailing about who can't see North Bristol Elfins anymore, who used to be able to.
And they're still in group. They're still in that people section.
She can still log into group. And I think, I'm not quite sure what's happened. I'd have to go back. I did send all this in at the time. My account seems to have resolved itself. I lost some of my groups, but I now do seem to have them back.
That
was just a temporary blip. But none of our gift aid is working, which is why we were wondering whether we've been updating the wrong person account.
If you can.
But that's probably outside the scope of this webinar, because it's not safeguarding or DBS.
But if you can send me the email that you originally sent us at some point, and then I can kind of go through some of those queries. If they weren't answered for you, I can do that for you.
That would be fantastic. Thank you.
Happy to. Okay, lovely. All right, is there any more questions? No. Well, amazing. Well, thank you for coming along. I hope that was informative. As I said, if you have any questions, feel free to give me a call or drop me an email, and I'll get back to you. Okay.
Thanks, Leanne. That was really helpful.
Oh, I'm glad my first session was helpful.
Well,
I was a bit nervous at the beginning.
Maternity leave.
Nice to have you back.
Thank you. Nice to be back. All right. Have a nice evening, everyone.
Thank you. Speak to you soon.
Bye.
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 That was actually really helpful.